So to go over the irregulars, remember these don't follow the pattern of regular verbs. They don't necessarily use the same box that we just talked about, and they don't necessarily have accents where they should. So for the verb hacer, remember to do or to make, and the preterite, then it would be you did or you made something. Totally irregular doesn't have any accents. So what I want you to keep in mind is that, excuse me, the beginning part, I want you to remember it this way because we're going to do a whole other family of verbs that also follow this pattern. Once we notice that it's not just a stem change kind of in the boot like we did in the present tense, things like that, just remember the beginning for hacer is HIC, and then HIZ for the LAO usted form. And notice where you normally would have accents on the yo form, in the LAO usted form, you don't. Anybody notice anything with those accents? So yo form and the LAO usted. They don't have any accents because it's technically AR verbs or AR endings with no accents for the verb hacer. So ISTE, IMOS, IERON are ER and IR endings, but E and O for the yo form and the LAO usted form are AR endings with no accents. So if that helps you remember, go for it. Everybody okay with that said? Okay. For leer, this is where the 3 vowels in a row happens, only on the bottom 2. LE is your stem. Then you do your regular endings, I with an accent, ISTE. When you get to the bottom, instead of doing LEIO, you're going to see that there's 3 vowels in a row there, and so you are going to make that from EIO to LEYO. Okay. And make sure you have your accent there. Normally, yo form and the LAO usted normally have accents. Also change the IERON to YERON, but notice that the nosotros form and the to form have extra accents. Okay. And keep in mind, all the verbs that are irregular in the present tense, now a new set of rules. If it's irregular in the present tense, may or may not be in the preterite tense. Alright, Eden said, share the same box. So if you were to list them separately like your book has, fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron, said would be the same box. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron. I don't like to do them in a column like your book does, so I put them side by side. Just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically, you don't need to know the 5th one, the vosotros form, because we're still not making responsible for those. That's what. If you see a after the blank, usually it's going to be that you went somewhere, because remember the verb to go always has to be followed by an a, because you either went to a place or you went to do something. Okay, so that would be a clue. Another clue would be looking at the sentence in context and seeing that anytime you're using the verb to be, ser, if you were or somebody was something, it would be referring to characteristic, origin, permanence, time, date, all the reasons that we went over why we used the verb ser. And then you can see some of the examples down there at the bottom in context. El señor Martínez fue profesor de español. He was the Spanish professor, because it wouldn't make any sense for us to say that he went professor of Spanish. So you just look at it, and it would make sense in context. And again, that A is a clue there that it is the verb to go, so you went somewhere. You don't really have to know the reason why they are the same box. Just know that said is not usually used in the preterite tense. It's used in the other past tense that's called imperfect. We're not going to learn that until a little bit later in the semester. But there's reasons why you use certain verbs in the preterite versus when you use them in the imperfect, which they're both past tenses. And normally when you're doing description, time, things like that, which we'll go over those reasons later, you're going to use the verb said in the imperfect instead of the preterite, which is just the other past tense. Okay. And dar and ver, the last two irregulars we're covering for this chapter. Dar, remember, is the verb to give, the past tense, you gave something to somebody. But diste, dio, dimos, dieron, is just an AR verb that uses ER and IR endings with no accents. And ver, the only thing that's irregular about it is that it has no accents. For your project, I do want you to use some regular and irregular verbs. And then throw in a couple of keywords in there. We've gone over a couple of the keywords. We're going to go over some more tomorrow. But if you look at the very bottom here, for ellos salieron anoche, obviously these would be sentences. Sentences in the preterite past tense would be using keywords that would signal preterite past tense. Does anybody remember anoche? Anoche is last night. Ayer, from your vocab? Yesterday. So yesterday I ate, or I didn't eat at home, I ate in the restaurant. And did you see a movie? What is semana pasada? What is semana? Right, last week. Good. So, remember that this pasado or pasada would be masculine or feminine depending on which word you couple it with, and it doesn't literally mean last, just as a phrase, last week, literally the week that has passed. Okay, so for your project, I do want you to use regular and irregular verbs. Your sentences in Spanish plus the picture of where you're pretending to have gone is due Thursday. And then your visual of the rest of all the information about your country is due on Friday. All right, let's do a couple of exercises. This is just using the verb ir, said. It's telling you that you're using ir on this one. Remember that said also means to be. And so these should be easy because it's all the same. Actually, let's do this one out loud. Then I'll have you do the next one on your own. What would be the first blank in number 1? How do you spell it? For the yo form is F-U-I. So fui. So I went where? I went to school and he went also. So is it he and somebody else? I did this, he did this also. So, yo form fui, ella usted form is fue with an E. Okay? So, fui, fue, fui, fue, fui, fue. For 1 through 4 there. The A, and the directions told you to use the verb to go. Plus, anytime you see the A, you're going to a place or to do something, which would be a verb not conjugated because you have the 2 verbs in a row. Okay, and then a or a and el join together to be al. Yes. Okay. What about 5? First blank on 5. Fuimos, good. And second blank on 5? Fueron, good. So we went where? We went to the pool. They went also. So just talking about they, not they and somebody else. Okay? So they're irregular, so there's no rhyme or reason to them, unfortunately. Just got to remember which one goes in each box. This is the verb to go. But the verb ser, to be, would be the same exact box. Yeah. Okay, so fuimos, fueron, fuimos, fueron, fuimos, fueron. Okay? Let's do this. I want you to try to work on this and keep in mind that it's a conversation. So when you don't have isolated sentences by themselves, you have to keep in mind, well, who are you asking the question? Who's the subject for the question? Who's the subject for the answer? For example, I always go back to the question, the easy question of how are you? If you're going to answer that question, you're not going to say you're doing okay. You're going to say I'm doing okay. So keep in mind who's asking the question and who's answering the question. Try this. We'll go over it, and then we're going to do a fastest, most correct game for a free quiz pass, and we'll explain that in a minute.